Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for your patience. It wouldn't be a webinar without some technical issues to get us started. Just some quick housekeeping for those of you who just hopped on. If you could please put yourself on mute when you're not speaking, that would be great to reduce background noise. You can post any questions or comments in the chat and we'll either get to them during the meeting or we can get to them at the very end. We designed this to be a shorter update so that we could have some more room for discussion. Just making sure there's nothing critical in the chat. All right. And so again, thank you for joining us. We have some great news to share tonight about the project's process, including some changes to where and how we're working to restore a kelp forest at Tinker's Reef. And so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Casey Cooper. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for G2KR. I'm a graduate student at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey, and I'm a dive master in training at the Bamboo Reef Dive Shop. And I'll be helping Keith to run the meeting tonight. So next slide, Keith. Great. So for our agenda, we'll start off with a brief overview of the project. So for those of you who are new, welcome, but also we won't be doing such an in-depth overview of the project. So I encourage you to check out our website or the Facebook page if you want to learn more about the background or how the project came to be. And so after that, Keith will walk us through the current progress on Tinker's Reef, as well as some new focus areas for urchin culling. And then I'll go over how you all can get involved, which includes some incentives and fun prizes. And so with that, I will go ahead and hand it off to Keith, the project leader that you guys all know so well.
Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you all for helping us to celebrate the team's progress and for us to describe the next phase of the project, which we can now begin due to the progress we've already made by our volunteer divers. So let's review the Tinker's Reef project goals. First goal is do this safely. Second, train divers to cull urchins properly without harming other marine life. Very important. Reduce the purple and red urchin density below 2 per square meter in the treatment area, and to communicate data to marine resource managers. We want to show that recreational divers can come together in a responsible and ethical manner. And we are working to earn the trust of authorities so that we can get permission to expand into marine protected areas in the future. So we have bonus goals for the project, and the bonus goals are to establish a giant kelp forest at Tinker's Reef, provide a giant kelp spore bank for future kelp forest recovery, and monitor changes in the kelp forest community. In this map, you can see the red perimeter that is the Tinker's Reef area. And that's where the kelp restoration divers have been working on this side, and on the cable grid is our object. So the mustard color in this drawing, like a mustard stain, is where kelp has been known to have grown in the past 30 years, actually. So that's a good reference. So the stars show where the easiest access is to come out to our project area. And the one with the circle around it is the one that most divers have been using. That's the one at Park Avenue, and that's the one we use for our meetup. The little figures here are where there are restrooms along the shoreline here. And we hope all our work is going to help make this kelp forest thrive again. So this is an illustration of how the current progress is on Tinker's Reef. So we began working on the 100 by 100 meter grid in April. The density of urchins was initially 7 per square meter. And our studies at Lover's Point show that urchins must be reduced to less than 2 per square meter in order for kelp to reestablish and survive. So this pink blob that you see in the image here shows where a 5-acre kelp forest established next to the grid in June. And the white area outside of the kelp is made up of urchin barrens and rock and sand. And Urchins don't like moving across sand, but they will if they detect some kelp or something on the other side of it. So, we've been seeing a lot of hungry urchins moving into this area from outside of the area. So, and they tend to run with their own species. So there's mostly red urchins, mostly purples on these locations, and reds coming in this way. Now, this is what happened in August. So in August, we took another look at it and we were able to establish on the north and southeast of the grid, we established some kelp on the north side and on the south side by us going and protecting that kelp on the grid. Now, the stippled area here, these little dots that you see, are areas where we went around outside of the grid and outside of the kelp forest and went specifically after urchins that were eating the live kelp in these areas. So that's what you see with these stipple areas all around here. And what happened too is that we lost some kelp over on the east side of the site. And we were busy on the grid over here, and in that time, the kelp on the east side of the site was lost. But our efforts have helped to have kelp reestablished on the north part of the grid and down here south of the grid. It expanded into these areas as we were working on them and clearing out the urchins. So presently, the kelp is thinning and it's losing its fronds, and there's a lot of encrusting bryozoan. It's called a membranipora. It's a moss animal, it's bryozoan, which is encrusting the algae. And so you look at it, it's a stipe with some nematocysts and no fronds on it at this point. And that bryozoan encrusting it causes it to degrade. And once that food source is gone for the urchins, and the urchins are in the kelp forest, living in cracks, living off the detritus that is under that canopy, then once that source is gone, they'll just come out of the cracks and eat the live kelp and go for the holdfast. So we need to go into this kelp forest and clear all the urchins out of it, or this kelp will be lost over the winter. So we are going to concentrate our efforts on these other areas. So the last urchin culling within the grid was completed in early September. And if you recall, our goal was to reduce the urchin population to less than 2 per square meter. Through hundreds of hours of work and many, many dives, kelp restoration divers were able to reduce the urchin population to an estimated 1 per square meter on these areas. So congratulations and thank you. And we have culled the urchins to a satisfactory level. And Reef Check and Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and Department of Fish and Wildlife are now surveying the grid to reevaluate our work and we're hoping to see if their data in probably a couple of weeks. They'll come back with that. So our efforts are continuing at Tankers Reef outside of the grid, and we're starting to work on the orange buoy more than before. The orange buoy, which is currently positioned west of the grid, it's been there for a little while. The instructors will take their students to the orange buoy for training, and that's where certified kelp restoration divers will be working to reduce the urchin population. Whenever divers are able to clear the area of urchins along the 100-meter tape, then we will move the buoy to a new location. Instructors and kelp restoration divers will be notified of the new location of the buoy through the assignment portal. So, as I noted earlier, we are taking a break from work on the grid while Reef Check and National Marine Sanctuary surveyors collect data on our progress. Eventually, we will need to return to the grid to work as urchins move in from the surrounding barrens. But we are now beginning to focus on our restoration efforts on the orange buoy, which is situated within the kelp forest. Like the grid, this buoy is for certified kelp restoration divers only. Untrained divers are able to work in the area around the gray buoy. So there are some key differences between diving on the orange buoy and the grid. When divers descend on the buoy line, they will follow a 100-meter tape to their assignment. So their assignment will tell them to head east or west. And it's just like working on the grid, that the dive teams have no actual boundary lines marking the sides of their lanes. It's just an imaginary line. And you're going to have to work on it in such a way that you use your compass more and try to stay in that same heading as you go along. And so you're going to be thorough and as you go through this, and don't worry about the distance that you travel along the line. So the culled urchin carcasses versus the unculled urchin areas, define the areas needing to be culled. So don't waste a lot of effort in culling dead urchins, but do clean up the surviving urchins that others had missed. We want to be careful not to harm other critters or to chisel and break off shale fragments and really take our time and be thorough. So when you're through with the orange buoy, stop when you or your buddy is getting low on air, ascend with a surface marker buoy or swim to the orange buoy and ascend on the line for safety, and return to the surface with at least 500 PSI. First goal, safety. So this is our current progress on the reef. So we're 224,000 urchins, and this is cumulative. This is on the grid and off the grid, right? 224,000 urchins are estimated to have been culled, 271 diver hours underwater, and 358 dives are recorded. That's 358 rows of data that we have collected from divers. So that's just amazing that we're able to do that. And you can see how the accumulated effort is having an upward trend here. So with the return of some areas of healthy kelp forest, 6 southern sea otters, a threatened species, have been able to return to Tankers Reef, and we see them every morning. Casey?
Great. And so on this slide, you'll see the growth of our urchinator population since last March. And for those of you who are not familiar, we have started calling our kelp restoration divers who have completed the certification course urchinators. And so we also have over 300 registered divers and counting as well. And so, like Keith said, all of this work has been made possible by those 65 urchinators, and we look forward to that number growing in the future. Next slide. And so for those of you who are registered but not yet certified, we have put together a list of instructors and dive shops that are offering the certification class. And if you use that link up in the right-hand corner, that'll take you to our website where you can find this exact table. So please go ahead and take a look, and also note that the prices vary for the different shops, and same with when they schedule the classes. So go ahead and take a look and see what works best for you. Next slide. And a little update on the Beach Hopper 2. It is still on hold because they are waiting for a commercial fishing license to be issued by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We know a lot of you folks are waiting to get on that boat to go out there and avoid that surface swim. So as soon as it is up and running, we will send out a newsletter. We'll post it on Facebook with the hopes that, every Thursday she'll be taking out divers to go cull some urchins. So the cost will be around 25 to 30 bucks, just enough to cover the costs for the crew for the day. Next slide. And so a great way to get involved in this project is to come to one of our scheduled meetup days. They're a great opportunity to meet other urchinators and even meet some new dive buddies. And, if you don't know anyone, that's great. You can still show up. We'll pair you off, or Keith loves to dive with certified divers and show them the ropes, especially with things changing around outside of the grid. So we have 3 more scheduled, with one of them this Sunday. So we'd love to see you guys out there. We do provide snacks and coffee and even some warm tomato soup in between dives. And it's also a great time for you to stop by and get one of the new project stickers. So We hope that's enough incentives for you. The group does meet at Park Ave, and that's where you can unload your gear. If you can find a spot, great. Otherwise, you'll move your car to another spot, and then Keith will do a great briefing, and you guys will walk out together. Next slide. So yeah, we need more divers. So if you're not a certified diver yet, please go take a look at that list of instructors. And if you are a certified diver, as in a kelp restoration certified diver, please come to a meetup. We'd love to hang out with you. Next slide. And so for those of you who like where cost might be an issue, we do offer scholarships. So we can help cover the cost of your training, of the annual fishing license and the hammer. We just ask that you have a 5-dive commitment after your training. And we are limiting it right now to student and the military. So if you would like to be considered for a scholarship, please go ahead and send an email to info@g2kr.com and we will reach out to you to coordinate. Next steps, slide. And we also have set up a Golden Hammer program as a way to thank our volunteers and the urchinators. So we've set up a tiered reward process. So if you've logged 6 dives, you'll get a cool t-shirt. And if you've logged 10, you'll get 1 Tanker's Reef reservation on the beach hopper. And then if you've logged 20, you'll get 2 Tanker's reservations on the beach hopper. And so for those of you, once you qualify for a t-shirt, we'll reach out via email for your size and your address. Next slide. And so again, just pointing out all the awesome work that our urchinators have been doing. We already have some people racking up some charters on the beach hopper when eventually it is up and running. So Stephen will be good to go for a while, but please get out there and we'll reach out and get the t-shirts out. Next slide. And so we also do have a great social media presence. If you aren't following us on Facebook, I really encourage you to follow the Facebook page. And we love to see your dive reports. So if you post them on the Monterey Bay dive groups, or if you post it on our page, we'll share it around. We want to hear about the work you did, about the conditions. We'd love to see it. And we also have a newsletter. So go ahead and you can go to that link if you're not already signed up. That's where we'll put in a lot of announcements and any other great information about the project. Next slide. So of course, we want to say thank you to our collaborators and allies for those that make this work possible and have helped us throughout the way. And also noting we don't have the dive shops on here or the dive clubs, but they have been instrumental in the education and outreach. So we really, really, really thank them as well. Next slide. And of course, people have donated to the project. You guys have really made it a lot better for us and helping with the scholarships and just the gear that it takes to get this project going. So thank you as well. Next, and like I said, for the fundraising, this is a pretty equipment intensive project. So thank you for that. Next slide. And these are all the links where you can stay updated, and we can post those in the chat as well, because that'll probably be easier. All right, next. And at this point, we will go ahead and open it up for any questions or comments. We'll check the chat. Let's see. So Matthew, you're in town and want to help. And AOWD diver, can you join this Sunday? Keith, I'll let you take that question.
Yeah, if you want to, on Sunday, we're doing a meetup right there at Park Avenue, and come join us. You know, we'll figure out if you're not trained urchinator, then we can get you out on the gray buoy. You know, we can go out over there. It's nearby, and we'll get you calling over there. Yeah, glad to have you. Come on out. I got a hammer for you.
Perfect. What time is the meetup on Sunday as well?
It's at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock at Park Avenue. If you haven't been there before, it's kind of a strange little cul-de-sac of a street. There's limited parking there, but we have a big tarp that we lay down, and you can take all your gear out and just throw it on the tarp. Then go park your car on the other side of the street. Park all day. Doesn't cost nothing. Come back and go down.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we have a question from Jeff. Sounds like we were able to join you on 10/10 prior to completing the certification course. And then the second question is, what is the distance from the shore to the orange gray buoy?
The distance from the shore to the first buoy is 700 feet. So it's 1,000 feet to the other side of the grid. So that's about how far it is from the shore. It's about 1,000 feet. So that would be like if you were at the breakwater and you started there and you swam on the surface all the way to the number 10 on the wall, maybe a little further because it starts, there's sand in the first 100. So going to 11, you have to go all the way, kick to 11. And it's not, I mean, we do it all the time from shore. It's just, it feels like it's a long way because there's no reference. You can't look at the side and see the wall going by you. You just see condominiums getting smaller. It's, you know, so, but it's not bad. You know, it takes us 15 minutes to swim out there. Max depth of the grid. I see the question there. A fair question. Yeah, on the shallow end is 27 feet, and on the other end, the deep end, further out from shore, it's 32 feet. So it doesn't vary very much. It's all fairly shallow. Yeah, if it's a high tide, it'll be 35 feet or so. Is what you'll be into. And the way to describe it is kind of like it's a really rocky substrate with like steps in it, but all those steps are kind of going down, right? The ledges are all facing to the south, but the whole thing is generally kind of tilted south, tilted offshore. So I don't know, it's a really neat place. And it's pretty flat, you know, generally just, and the ledges are maybe a couple feet. There's not a lot of big rocks and boulders and things like that out there.
Great. And Matthew, you've had your hand up for a while. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Hi. Yeah, thanks. I'm just curious. So I've been wanting to join in on this fun, and I don't have the training yet. And I'm curious about how much does it cost, and is that like up to the instructor and just, you know, ballpark?
Yeah.
That one?
I'm sorry?
May I answer that one?
Sure, Melanie.
So I know one instructor does it for $125 because he's committed to the project, and he basically is kind of almost doing it for free. And then a couple of the other dive shops have it up to like 325. So it ends up to be close to 400 with the fishing license and that you have to buy.
And then Matthew had asked, like, who is that person? And that's Randall Spangler from Diver Dance. And they're running a wait list over there, but until the beach hopper is running, they're not going to go through their wait list. So there's options for you, you know, and it depends on, you know, how you would like to be taught too. You know, each diver provides their own service in their own way, and we kind of give them the materials. It doesn't cost them anything to, you know, be subscribed to the program or to be instructed in how to teach the program. But that is, you know, it's up to them. You know, it's not our business to determine how much, you know, what they're going to charge for that kind of service.
All right. And Justin, I see your hand up, and then we'll go back to the chat questions.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really neat project. So I just want to thank everybody that's involved. And I guess a two-part question. One is, are there any prereqs to take the training course? Is it open water, advanced open water? Do you need rescue diver or something like that? And then I guess two, what's the time frame? I don't live in the Monterey area, and so I'd travel, you know, to come take this course. And is it something that you can do in a day, or is it a whole weekend, or more or less? Or thanks.
Very good. Great question. Yeah, this is not a very difficult, like advanced topic. The access is really quite simple from shore and not big waves and stuff. So we set the bar really low. All we need is not low, but I mean an entry level, right? So an open water student is qualified to do this. But what we try to encourage people is that, you know, they should be really comfortable diving in cold water. So we asked for like 20 diving in cold water in the last while here. sometimes people, they don't have that experience with the bigger wetsuits and all that kind of, and more weight and everything. So that would be something you should be comfortable doing. It also helps if you're good at using a compass, another good skill. And a lot of this is about buoyancy control and peak buoyancy control at that, because we don't want people to be dragging their gear across the reef and harming things that way. So those are really the prerequisites for the course. What was the second question? What was it, Casey?
Time frame, and that was a great
answer.
Time
frame. Yeah. Well, and the time frame. The way it's set up is the way I can tell you how Aquarius teaches it. They meet at the Moose Lodge on Friday night, and they go through the whole course. It takes about 2 hours, and then the next day, at some point, they have to do 2 dives on the reef, and they just meet at Park Avenue. And they go out on they have a scooter and they pull people out there, and you dive. One, just kind of getting familiar with the reef and how it buoyancy control, those things. And the second one, you're calling and counting urchins on the second dive. So you're really collecting data, and that includes all of the the nuances of how to get assignments and to report your data accurately. So,
and then
that's kind of your time commitment.
Yeah, they're doing theirs all one day. So you don't have the night before. So that's why we encourage you to look at the different dive shops, because they're all doing a little bit of their own spin on it. So depending on your time frame, cost, whatever, just to take a look around. And then another question is, someone is interested in taking the course, but they're wondering if the project is expected to go on for some time. So is it worth it?
Man, is it worth it? Yeah. It's really worth it, because this project, I try not to get too grandiose about it, but this is the new way of the ocean. The time in the past where, we could just dive and look at things is kind of gone. The ocean's going to need our stewardship. And so this project, we have permission to do this for the next 3 years at Tankers Reef, but that is not where we're stopping. This is just the project that we gain trust to get into other areas in the future. And we hope to get into state marine conservation areas and critical habitats, on rocky granite substrates in the future. So no, this is something that, we need to build an army to fight an army. And this is how we do that, by having this be something that divers can get involved in and be useful at doing this and protecting the things that they love. And so this is something that's going to hopefully live beyond us. I think ocean stewardship in a warming climate is just something that's going to be necessary for divers to do. Thanks for the question.
All right. And then we have another question about if we do any work at Casper Cove. John is organizing a group of free divers to go up there this weekend and cull urchins, and is wondering if there are any recommended ideal spots to focus on.
Yes, I don't know too much about Casper Cove, only that it is a replicate of this project. That's the way the state considers them, that they have 2 pilot projects going on now with recreational divers. There's our effort here, where we have 350 rows of data, and the Casper Cove has like 40, right? And over a course of a year and a half. So it's not as popular of a place. It's up a remote area from here. For me, it's 6.5 hour drive to get there. I've been to Mendocino, but not to Casper. But yeah, I mean, my feeling is that a rising tide lifts all ships. If people are learning to do this and they're in the Bay Area, sure, go to Casper Cove and try it out over there and let us know, show people there how it's done. They don't have this kind of a program there where we have, divers that are in a real community funded and organized way. They just kind of meet up on Facebook to do that kind of thing. So, but it's a great project. We'd love to see it succeed up there. It's different. It's bull kelp, and they had issues themselves with the Park Service, everything else. So we're all learning how to do this, and the more that we can learn, the more useful of a tool we can make this develop.
Great. And then we did have a question about the if the fishing license was an annual fee. And so I know that you can either purchase the annual one for around 56 to 60 bucks, or you can purchase a day one
Yeah.
for 17.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the annual license is like $51.66 or something like that. It goes up a percentage every year. And it is only good until the end of this year, till
Open point.
yeah, so you have to start it again next year and have another one. And we asked that question, how many people that are, when you register, how many people already have a license? So some people get a license anyways, and some people have to get a new one. And we get to go to Fish and Wildlife and say, hey, we're paying your way. We are paying our own way in this project, and we're paying for Fish and Wildlife to get involved. So it's all good. We can't bribe them. So maybe this will help convince them that we're invested in this.
Great. And then we had a question about if folks need previous experience diving in cold water. And I think you touched upon that one a little bit before in the earlier one, but maybe hitting on those.
Yeah. Cold water is the thing, right? With Monterey, Monterey is really world renowned for its pristine kelp forest, in cold water. And our water temperature usually ranges from 50 to 55 degrees, and you should be comfortable diving in that in a wetsuit, and that takes some experience to be comfortable with that.
And then another question, do you need to take the course or the kelp restoration diver course if you are an AAUS diver?
For AAUS diver, I don't have another program for AAUS divers separate from this. But if you are a reef check person, if you a lot of people have done reef check in the past. If you're a certified reef check diver, there is a short course that you can do through Dan Abbott. Dan Abbott and I did a hour and a half session on it, and you can view that, and then Dan Abbott can certify you as a reef check person to be on the site, because reef check divers already have a qualification. They have an eco diver card, and so they're well qualified to do this kind of thing. They love to count. So, but AAUS divers like to count too, but you'll have to come in through a kelp restoration specialty course. It's a PADI ordinary course. You have to come in that way to the course.
Okay. And from Jeff, he said, if you'd like, we could present this exact presentation to the SF Scuba Club. I'm one of the key organizers there, and I think we could pick up a few volunteers. Let me know if that's of interest.
All right, that's your court, Casey.
Yeah. So Jeff, we'll put a note to reach out to you after this. If you could post your email, we'll talk to you about that.
Okay.
Someone else asked if this video will be posted online, and we are recording it, so we'll get it up online for the folks who maybe couldn't get that passcode.
There's always a recording. Yes.
And then Paul brought up that there's currently a state assembly bill to open MPAs to restoration efforts.
Great point, Paul. Yeah, that's part of our political. We're calling urchins, right? So they told me no like 3 times, right? But it doesn't, here we are today calling urchins, right? So the way we do that is through this political process of public pressure. That's the only thing that really works. I went there before and just, I thought that the cause was so good that they would just relent, but they didn't. And you'll see that, to get the next step, we need to do a political campaign to make it possible for us to scale up our efforts and expand into the state marine conservation areas next year. And to do that, we've been working really hard at getting an assembly bill passed. It's called AB 63. And it has already passed through the California Assembly and the Senate. It is now on the governor's desk. And what this bill does is it makes it so that it adds 3 words to the language of the state marine conservation area allowed activities, and makes restoration and monitoring an allowable activity inside the state marine conservation areas. It's kind of crazy that it's not allowed now. If there was an oil spill, we could not do restoration by their own rules. It's kind of nuts. But the reserves have that language. So we're fixing the language because the Department of Fish and Wildlife has held up that language as being a reason that they can't allow us to do what we need to do. So we need that rule. We can certainly send, we'll send out in a newsletter the petition that get the governor to sign it, and then we'll take on. And there's other kinds of stuff coming up too. We have this the MPA decadal review is coming up, and there are meetings that are coming up in October and November for people to attend and listen to how people view the marine protected areas, and how is there a way that we can do real work in them in terms of restoration. And that's a big thing. It happens every 10 years. This is the first one. And but in Central Coast, we've been, our marine protected areas have been here for 15 years. So, we're in the 8th year of this crisis here. And so we really need to, hear your voices at these meetings from what you've seen, because they don't get it, right? I mean, they're land lubbers. They look at the surface of the ocean. We've seen what it's like under the water. And those of you that have dove for any length of time can really appreciate what's happened and how we need to fix that.
Very well said.
End of rant.
All right. And where did that question go? We had a question about just describing the process. Are we removing or destroying the urchins? Also, is the membranophora worse than usual, or is the damage you described typical?
Wow. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. I'll take the second part first. The membranophora is kind of early. I mean, it's been 60-degree water out there at Tankers Reef for the last month, and that bryozoan is just all over everything. And we've watched it I think it's normal, but it's just kind of early. It's September now. That doesn't usually come till later. So yeah, that's a change. And the process we're using is a hammer. So this is, you can see this here. It's on this side. This is the hammer that we are using on the job. It is a welding hammer, and it has a pointy end on this end and a chisel on the other end. And on that, what we're using that for is that at this place that we're working at Tankers Reef, this is the ideal tool. It has this nice chisel end. You can get the urchins when they're kind of out in the open. And then if they're in smaller little holes, you turn it around and get them with the small end right there. And a lot of times they're on the kelp, and you go through and get them with the small end. And they like to burrow into the holdfast of the kelp, and they'll kind of go back and forth, round and round, and make like a little tunnel into the side of the holdfast. And if you put your light on them, you'll light them up, and you can see with the pointy end, you just kind of go, because the holdfast will grow over them. So you'll see like through the holdfast, there's something underneath it, and you just put this in there and scramble them up a little bit. So that's the process of doing it. We're destroying them underwater, trying to make sure that they don't survive that. If you damage them really thoroughly, then that urchin will not survive. They'll die from infections. But if you make a small hole, then that urchin could survive for a week. And that whole time it's just eating more kelp. So we want to make sure and kill all the urchins, and not all the urchins, but kill the ones that we can without harming other marine life. That's the critical piece to this. Is we don't want to damage starfish and other things that could be in and around these urchins. So being really careful and going through it that way. Yeah, and the result of that is fish have come around when we're culling, and they're just eating everything. It doesn't go to waste. It's not like it's trash, right? I mean, when you start on one end of a reef and you start going down the line, and you go, oh, I'm going to go back and double check. I need to go back. There's fish already there. They're already eating it right out of the shells. They're eating what gonad is left, and then the sand dabs come and the rainbow perch come. Those are great. They're beautiful fish, and the little the black-eyed gobies and senderitas, love that stuff, and the whole fish population has improved, and then the predators have moved in too. We've seen lingcod, and we saw a leopard shark the other day that's come in for these fish as well. The fish population increased dramatically, and then the sea stars come and eat the carcasses further. And after we come back 2 weeks later, there's nothing left but little white shells. And so it came from the ocean, it returns to the ocean, and that's how it should be, I think.
All right, great. We have someone asking if you can send images of the invasive species that you want them to note.
We can post those. Yeah, they're in with the training. There's 2 invasive species that we are looking for. There's water cypera, which is like a red rust bryozoan. It's like just like red potato chips that's on the rock, and we have it in a couple places. We know it's there, and we're going to keep an eye on it because urchins eat it. So if we kill the urchins, then there will be more water cypera. And so we want to keep an eye on that particular one. And sargassum, which is the scourge of Southern California, was spotted this last year at the breakwater. So we are on the lookout for that. And there is a lookalike to Stephanocystis, which kind of looks like Sargassum horneri, but it is different, and we can show you the difference between those 2, so we don't get false positives for that invasive.
Great. And we did have another comment from someone who, on their assignment yesterday, it wasn't quite clear about what they were supposed to do on the orange buoy. So maybe taking those 2 slides where we describe that process,
Sure.
making it a little bit more clear, because you described it really well during this meeting. But for the folks who took the class and learned about it on the grid,
Right.
it would be helpful for them to see that slide if they didn't come tonight. So thank you, Scott, for that suggestion. So we'll take these 2 and we'll take this information.
Yeah, it's a good question. So on the grid was different, but on the orange buoy, what you're going to do is come to the orange buoy. You go down the line, right? And also on that line, there's a bunch of hammers clipped into the chain. So if you happen to forget your hammer or drop it on the way out there, don't turn around, go back, keep coming. They're on the line. So you come down the line, and your assignment is going to be, it'll say a number that you'll start on the tape measure, and it'll say east or west. So you'll come down, and it'll say on the assignment that your lanes are between 5 and 10 meters. So you'll find that spot on the tape, and then you will go east or west. So this in this example, it's going east, and you're just going to go out and be careful and thorough and call the urchins as you generally head east. There's no imaginary lines for you to cross over, but you'll know when you're in or you're out of it, because there will be cold urchins in the other areas, or not, or there'll be urchins that are uncold, and that'll help you define for yourself which way you're going in that general direction. And when you do that, you'll find ones that were missed, that someone went over them before, perhaps. Maybe one earlier time, there were some that were overlooked, and then go ahead and get those too. But you want to try and move through the areas that are already culled as quickly as you can before you get to the areas where they haven't been culled. And so that goes back to the importance of being really thorough when you cull the urchin, so that it's recognizable that it's been culled, and not just like a single hole in it that is, it's not an effective cull. And that way, someone else might not see the single hole and go get them again. And that's a wasted effort. And we want to make the best use of everyone's time and not be that inefficient in culling dead urchins. I think that answers the question.
Hey, Keith,
Yeah.
Yes.
you want to speak to how they hide?
How they hide is, thanks, Paul. Yeah, the urchins hide right in plain sight. The urchins live in little cracks, right? That's their preferred way to go. There's little ledges there, and there's little cracks, and there are little holes there where they did, or their ancestor went and burrowed a little hole into that rock. And you don't see it though, because there is kelp, that is drift, red algae or brown algae that drift, and they grab a hold of it with their little petal area on top of their head. They grip it, and then they bring it around to their mouth and they eat it. So what you're looking for is that there's kelp there that doesn't look right. It's not moving right? Like you look at it and go, well, that shouldn't be there. That shouldn't be attached to anything, right? And then it's just like a big neon sign saying, you know, I'm an urchin, I'm right here, and I eat this, right? So that's how you know it's there. And then you just take it and pull it out, pull the kelp out of its away from them, and that exposes them all. You don't want to try and swing through it and kill whatever's holding on to that. It could be something else. It could be a masking crab, right? So be really careful in that and pull that off. And you know, never swing your hammer where you can't see the tip of what you're hitting, right? So that means you don't want to climb underneath ledges and you know, put your tank out on the other side and just go in there and try to get as deep as you can. That's fine. You know, those urchins we'll get them another day. You know, the red urchins go really deep and they're going to come out every night anyway. So we'll get them another time when they're out and about.
All right, great. Someone asked if G2KR is a 501c3 and how many tanks/dives are typically done on an assignment.
We are not a 501c3, but we aspire to be one for next year. And we'll have to see who we can, how this progresses. If we can get permission, then we'll pull the trigger on that. Right now we have a fiscal sponsor. That's Nancy Caruso with Get Inspired. If people want to donate and get a tax deduction, we can do it that way. We've done that lots of times and brought money in that way. So we will be. It has to be. Yes.
Hi, this is Warren Noah. If you're looking to become 501c3, give me a call. I'll help you out with that. I'm an attorney and I've done it in the past.
You got it. Thanks, Warren. I'm a big fan.
No problem. I want to be able to help.
Appreciate it.
And then in the chat, some folks were talking about if they have found some urchins with sufficient uni that they could use for culinary applications, and some are saying they haven't quite found that much inside and some.
Yeah, I have been, in addition to everything else, I've been pulling urchins off the reef and dissecting them in a lab and weighing their inside to see how their health is. And what we found is that the urchins are getting less healthy on this reef. In February, they were like 7% gonad to body weight, and now they're like 3% gonad to body weight. So they've exhausted the resource, especially on the southern part of the grid. And so there is not a lot of uni to be had in these ones. Even the red urchins that are living under the ledges and come out at night, they're not full too. I've been testing them, and they can get as high as 8 or 9%, but that's for their size too. It's not considered sufficient. You know, we have a red urchin fisherman that wanted to pull them out, and that's a whole nother venture that we're going to work on and put purple urchins into ranching. And the urchins were not, they were garbage, is what he said.
And we just had a question come in saying, as I recall, culling should be suspended during certain times of the year. Could you clarify?
Yeah, good one. Yeah, because you know, urchins spawn in February and March is kind of that's when they spawn. So we will not be culling during that time. So we're going to go as we have meetups planned through October, and so we'll plan on diving at least through October. But then it's be like weather dependent. Might go out a couple times after that and do some things, but then we'll just stop and we'll pick it up again in the spring. Give those urchins that have that potential. Let's leave them alone during that time, and we don't exacerbate the problem by having more urchin culling at that time, having more urchin spawning event at that time. It even includes urchin ranching, because if we put urchins into a place and we rehabilitate them with kelp, we have to make sure that population is gone by the time that February, March roll around. We'll have to make sure that they exhaust that supply. Is that enough? I feel like I'm hinting at urchin ranching program and not telling you, but we are planning to do something like that. We think it might be some more ethical way for human consumption. If we could take the urchins that are in poor shape and bring them into an urchin rehabilitation program, they're very resilient, and in 10 weeks they can become a marketable product that sells for $9 each, right? So when these fisheries are driven by profits and there's profit to be made, it's actually more profitable to do that than perhaps abalone. So the abalone farm is actually doing a ranching project they have a barge out there in the harbor, and we're helping to facilitate that with some of our red urchin fishermen friends from Santa Barbara. So hopefully we'll get that going in the future too.
All right, well, I think that is everything in the chat. Do folks have any more questions or comments or anything that I missed in the chat?
I guess we should write letters to the governor.
I will send out a link to the petition that you can sign up. We'd love to get some help with this. You know, the more the merrier. Last time at the Fish and Game Commission, we had 260 letters, and that's what took it over the line. You know, you guys know how to express your feelings, and we'd like to hear that too. And so yes, that will help us, and I'll send everybody the link in a newsletter. Thanks for that. Sounds like Barbara.
No,
Let's go, Kate. Oh, hi, Kate.
Oh, and there was one more question, Keith, about how many tanks/dives should they expect for an assignment?
Oh, well, for the meetup, we do 2 tanks. You can do as many as you like. You know, if you come, you know, I know Amelie and Kevin come out, do 1 dive, and then they go have lunch, you know, or enjoy the rest of the day. It's whatever you like to do, what you're comfortable doing. You know, we just ask that whenever you do that you report the data.
This is Kate again.
Okay.
So if we're not yet certified, we could come and dive this. We could join a meetup and dive gray buoy.
Yes, you come out on Sunday.
Okay, can't come this weekend, but it's
okay. Oh, another one
next weekend or the 3rd of October.
2 weeks after that. It's every 2 weeks.
Okay.
On the calendar. But yeah, come out, and then we'll get you situated.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. I got my license already, but finding instruction is.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult at this point. We'll figure something out. You know, we had this little, well, it's kind of a silly rule, but we were able to use the beach hopper. We're scheduling stuff on the beach hopper, and we have like a loophole that we're trying to do. It's kind of strange where you're on the beach hopper and then you step onto a raft that's privately owned, and then you go in the water. So, but it's just kind of bizarre. We'll get it fixed.
Yep. And Melanie, you raised your hand.
So Keith, if someone shows up that's untrained on Sunday, are you planning on going out with that group to make sure that they know what they're doing?
Yes, I always go out with the group on Sunday, and I'll brief everybody, and I'll swim out with the people to the gray buoy.
Okay, so you would take them to the gray buoy so they knew what was going on.
Yes. I will. Yeah.
And then just to clarify for those divers, you can't go out on your own until you have taken the certification class. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as going to the orange buoy and to the grid, that is following a certification class where you'll learn how to input the data and all of that. Yeah, that's correct.
All right, oh, Paul said, if you're traveling from out of town, rent tanks at your local shops. Rental gear in Monterey is often sold out. So good point, Paul, for those that are traveling, or call ahead and reserve gear too, if you have time.
Right.
And then another question about, were you surprised at how fast the grid was cleared?
Wow. Yeah. You know, when we first were talking to the authorities about this, they thought, well, you're just going to clear 1 lane. Like maybe you clear half a lane and then we'll come in and count it after you're done. And I'm like, you're just not totally, we're on different pages here, because they're thinking that maybe we clear like half an acre. And I'm like, I'm thinking we're going to clear like in the course of 3 years, like 50 acres. You know, we just had a total different concept of what we were doing. And so I thought we could clear it and in that amount of time, but I was just really surprised and just delighted how many people that came in the program. Every time I see divers coming out there, just a smile on my face, you know, that you know, it's really happening. and we're really getting it done in that amount of time, that we did. This is 4 months. We did what they thought would take us 3 years to do. So bravo. And yeah, I mean, the main, kind of what the goal came down to is, let's just go, let's just go show them. Let's just go kick ass, and that will help them to, trust us that we can do this really well in rain protected areas.
Great. And Matthew, your hand is raised.
Hey, yeah, I was just thinking, so just kind of generally speaking, is it worth going out and going to the untrained diver buoy if I'm like kind of waiting for a class to become available? Like, is that, I'm just kind of curious, like,
Yeah.
in your opinion, is it helpful to do it untrained, or should I wait till
No, I think that's valid. I think anything you can do, and you'll get more familiar with it, that'll make the class easier for you, I would think. If you get some experience for what it's like out there, what it's like to swing a hammer underwater, and then when you get to the class, it'll just make it better for you. I would recommend you do that. That would be good to do. If you think you're going to do it, and not soon, whatever, that'd be fine. Good idea.
Cool.
And where it is really is just the gray buoy is on a really dense area. There's a lot of urchins out there. It's a target-rich environment, and you'll get your fishing licenses worth of urchins there, no problem.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, and Melanie.
So Keith, for divers that are untrained, like Matthew was just talking about, are you going to show them how to not harm other organisms as they're hammering out there?
Yes,
they haven't had the training.
Yeah, there's a separate data portal for the gray buoy, and I'll guide people with that at the briefing, how to go through that. And if you go to the g2krlink.com page, those links are available there for how to go and get an assignment on the gray buoy, and it explains in a short document, the things that you're going to do on the gray buoy, and yeah, and at the briefing on the meetup, if someone comes to the meetup, I'll explain it to them then also, and take them out there.
All right, and Tim.
Yeah, one of my questions was already answered. The other one I have is, do you have like hammers available, or where can we get them?
Great question. Yeah, these hammers are available at your Home Depot, your Amazon, and also Harbor Freight has one that's really good. It's like $6. And
some of the local dive shops have them too.
Yes, and the local dive shops, Aquarius has them on the wall, and Bamboo Reef has them also, and Pro Scuba has them. You can buy them there. It's just like a convenience for you to buy them right there. I think that we asked them to sell them for $15 at the dive shops, and get a nice little clip for the end and bring on there. But if you're going to go to the untrained, and the beach hopper also, in the beach hopper, you won't be allowed to bring your hammer on board. We're just going to have the hammers already there on the buoy at the bottom, so we don't have to have hammers on the boat swinging around and all that stuff. Right? You got enough gear, Tim. You need a hammer.
Where do you secure your hammer when you're not swinging it?
Yeah, you attach it to yourself, but you don't want to make it so it's dangling down, right? You don't want it to be hanging out below you and catching on things, catching your buddy. So a lot of times I'll do it differently and attach the clip here, and it'll be hanging on a D-ring up in this position right here. That's how you do it. This one here was actually Brett is here, but Brett had lost this. He did not have anything attached to this, and we found it on the grid. So if somebody wants a hammer, comes to the meetup, I will give you this hammer.
Right, any other questions or comments? hopefully we will see you guys at our meetup day this Sunday. Oh, Mike asked if anyone does any culling at night and if it's worth it.
I have never done it at night. You could, but I mean, is it safe to do so? You have to make that decision, right? If it's safe to go out there at night. I think it'd be interesting because you see a lot more red urchins coming out from under the ledges and running across, but take a picture of it. I don't know. It might be interesting to see that kind of behavior. But there's no time limit. There's no hours of operation or anything like that. It's all through the assignment portal. So it's kind of a self-guided tour and self-guided reporting. And it's been going really well. We're capturing the data. And so I encourage you to do that.
Hey, Keith.
Yes.
Can you speak to the importance of following the rules?
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing, right? Thanks for that, Paul, because we are trying to get into the marine protected areas in the future. And the last thing we need is for someone to go into the marine protected areas and get busted, coming out with a hammer or, getting, it's not that enforceable, but, people see people and you don't want to like, oh, look, I called a bunch of urchins over here at Point Lobos or something, post it up on Facebook, because then the department is really they'll have no choice but to come after you. And that'll put the kibosh on the whole project and everybody who's worked on it. We all worked really hard at this and we're trying to, we're accountable to each other. So please be really careful and just be patient. We will get there.
And with that, the importance of the certification courses, making sure you take those. And yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also important too to speak out when you do see those posts on social media.
Yeah, shut them down. You see someone saying something that doesn't belong. Hey, I got a bunch of urchins at a monastery. Say, hey, dude, don't do that. Shut it down before the long arm of the law is not. They don't really have their ear out so much to Facebook, but they could. And all it takes is for something like that to happen, and we'll lose our opportunity that we all worked so hard to gain. So please be careful. Don't do that.
All right. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for all you've done and all you will do. And, it's great to be able to share this with you. And we look forward to really doing well in the future. And so thank you all. And I'm speechless at how I'm just having the time of my life. I'm just loving this. This is just great. And it's all because of this community outreach and support. And we're all working together for a common goal. It's just a beautiful thing. So thank you.
And with that, check out the Facebook page for the meetup days so you can see you in person and not over Zoom. Sign up for the newsletters and reach out if you have any other questions.
Okay. Awesome.
Have a great evening.